Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha Shruti Smriti Puranaanam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shri Medha Dakshinamurti Swamine Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste once again to all of you.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
After the last class, I thought that many of you will not turn up today. I thought that the spiritual path is so challenging that many will say, okay, it's not for me kind of a thing. In fact, it happens. I've seen this happening. When you actually, that's why these things are not told in the beginning to the students. Because that many people will not have the mental maturity to understand. That's why Kathopanishad describes this spiritual journey as Shurasya Dhara. Shurasya Dhara means like the edge, the sharp edge of a razor. So walking this spiritual path is like walking on this sharp edge of a razor. One has to be very skillful, very careful, so that one should not cut his legs. But at the same time, one should be able to travel. So it is not an easy path. And that's why, one in maybe million are able to follow this path. It's very challenging. But that's the ultimate goal of all lives. So anyhow, so we spent last Saturday on that. And before that, we completed the Anatma portion. So till now, we have actually done basically the basic qualifications, Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, what are the qualifications required for the spiritual path. And then we saw 11 types of Anatmas, which are not Atma. The whole discussion started by the student asking the Guru, what is Atma? So he first says what is not Atma, that he has completed now. 11 items, he said Panchakosha, then Sharira Trayan, then Avastha Trayan. These are not Atma. Okay, now question still remains, what is Atma? Isn't it? So the student comes back and he asks the same question. Okay, I understand all these things. You have very well enumerated the Anatmas, which we are very closely associated with, because normally that is what happens with us. We consider all the Anatmas as Atma. And that is where all our problems in life comes up from. That's the source of all our problems. So now the crucial subject matter of Atma, the author is coming now. And we have earlier very roughly defined this Atma as what? Atma is the invisible, immortal, inner essence of every individual. This is Atma. This is how we have briefly defined Atma. The invisible, immortal, inner essence, 3 I's, okay, of every individual. And the author said earlier that this Atma is the only real one, and all others are Anatmas, which are not actually real, right? So now he comes to define the Atma. What is this Atma? These Anatmas are all superficial personalities which are visible to us. Sometimes visible, some of them like Karana Sharira not visible. But it is still superficial personality. It is superimposed on the Atma. So now defining the Atma, the author says, and I will read, Madiyam Shariram, Madiyah Pranaha, Madiyam Manascha, Madiya Buddhihi, Madiyam Ajnanam iti Svenaiva Jnayate, Tadyatha, Madiyatvena Jnatam, Kataka Kundala Grihadikam, Swasmad Bhinnam, Tata, Panchakoshadikam, Swasmad Bhinnam, Madiyatvena Jnatam, Atmana Bhavati. Again, he wants to emphasize what is not Atma. Please understand it very, very carefully. He is still not coming to saying what is Atma. He is still pointing out that because of Loka Vyavahara, because of our experience, we know that everybody considers this body, mind, sense complex as their self. When you say I am Ganapathy, what is Ganapathy? Who is Ganapathy? This body is Ganapathy. That body, I take it as I. So the author is saying that even though I have explained everything about Anatmas, still you need to appreciate this particular logic as to why this body, mind, sense complex is also Anatma, which is not Atma. So that logic he presents in this long sentence. We will see the details of the sentence word by word later, but let us just understand what the whole approach of the teacher is here. Okay. So first he says all these panchakoshas which we have seen, the Sharira Trayams and all, they are not the real self. They are only a temporary medium through which I, the Atma, interact with the world. They are instruments for my interaction. They are the media, you can say, the medium for our interaction, for carrying out all our transactions with the world. And to demonstrate this, he uses a particular line of thought or a particular logic. What is that? He says, whatever we possess or use, we refer to them as what? Mine or my, isn't it? Whatever we say mine, it means that thing, it belongs to us. It is not us. This logic you understand? Suppose I say, this is my flask. What it means? That this flask belongs to me, but I am not the flask. This point has to be very carefully understood. Whatever we claim as me or as mine, that is not me, that only belongs to me. Okay. So it is different from myself. Whatever I say mine or my is different from me. That subtle difference we have to appreciate. Similarly, examples, a car, a book, a pen, and also my car, my pen, my book. When we say that, it means what? They all belong to me, but they are not me. Isn't it? They are not myself. The house, this is my house, we say. It means what? This house belongs to me, but I am not the house. I live in that house, but I am not the house. Okay. So the author is saying in short that whatever we claim as mine, we are not that. We are different from that. Now, if we analyze how we refer to this Panchakosha, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya koshas, what we will say, this is my body, this is my mind, this is my buddhi, isn't it? This is how we will describe. It means what? Whenever say this is my, this is my, this is my, that means it is not me. They all belong to me. I possess them, but that is not me. This is the logic the author wants us to appreciate. And unless we appreciate this particular aspect, the whole Vedanta will not make any sense. We, due to our ignorance and misconception, we are taking this body, mind, sense complex as me, whereas they are only mine. And even in our expressions, even in this language that we speak, we refer to them as mine only. We never say me body, me my mind. We never say that. We never say I, the mind, is upset or happy. I, the body, is sick. We never say that. We only say my body is sick. Or I am sick, we say. So when we say I am sick, what is happening is we are confusing between what we are and what we possess. We actually want to say that my body is sick. Instead of saying so many words, we say I am sick. But the sickness doesn't belong to you. Sickness belongs to your body. So this subtle difference is what we have to appreciate as the first step in understanding what is Atma. And this difference we need not understand in respect of all other things. Why? Because there it is very clear. Whether it's a car, house, a flask, or whatever it is, we know very well it is not me. It is different from me. The confusion comes only when we are referring to this body, mind, sense complex, because they are the closest to the Atma. They are the closest entities. So we get confused because of that. Okay. So now the author goes on, mentions in the first line, Madiyam Shariram, my body. Often we say we are tired, I am hungry, I am heavy, I am out of shape, and all that these words we use. What they actually mean and imply is my body is tired, my body is hungry, isn't it? My body is heavy, my body is out of shape. This is what we mean. In all these cases, we are referring to my body as I. I am tired. Actually, what we mean is my body is tired, but we say I am tired. What does it mean? Because of our misconception, we are misunderstanding what belongs to me as me. And that is the problem. Vedanta says a fundamental problem. You are unable to differentiate between what you are and what belongs to you. You are confusing the two things. And that is why you are not able to understand your real self. And this is all, of course, the play of Maya. That there's a different topic. We will come to that later. What is Maya and all that. When we see the Samashti, the Srishti, topic. So, whenever we want to say my body, we say I. So when we say my body, it's very clear that we are claiming the body as mine, and therefore the body cannot be me. And we have seen that the body represents Annamaya Kosha, right? Physical body. So that is what author says, Madiyam Shariram refers to the Annamaya Kosha in the Panchakoshas. And that Shariram is not me. It belongs to me, but it is not me. The same is the case with Madhyam Pranaham. My pranic energy, my energy. We also say, see, my digestion is weak, isn't it? My circulation is weak. My constitution is weak. My breathing is very heavy. All these we refer to as my only, right? So why then it should be different from me? So this entire pranamaya kosha, which is what he says, madhyam pranaha. Whole pranamaya kosha is not me, because I am referring to the pranamaya koshas, all these systems inside this sukshma sharira part of that pranamaya kosha, or pranamaya kosha part of sukshma sharira as my, all the physiological systems which is there in our body. Similarly, madhyam manascha, he says. We say my mind is disturbed. We say I am very worried. But what do we mean by saying I am worried? My mind is worried. That's what we actually imply, what we mean. But we say I am worried. So when we say my mind is disturbed, which means what? Mind belongs to me, but I am not the mind. So first one, Madhyam Shariram refer to the Shariram, that is Annamaya Kosha. Madhyam Pranaha refer to the Pranamaya Kosha. Madhyam Manascha refers to the Manomaya Kosha. One by one, these koshas, he said, which all we take it as me, I. Author is trying to negate them, saying that that is belongs to you, but that is not you. Okay. The same with Madhya Buddhi, the intellect. This also we refer to as my intellect, my buddhi, my intelligence, my rational faculty. All this we say my. So then there also we do recognize that the intellect is an instrument possessed by me, which I use. So again, something possessed by me cannot be me, different from me. I the possessor, I am not the object itself. There's all objects here. Okay. So different. So the buddhi is referring to Vijnanamaya Kosha. Then he says Madhyam Ajnanam. And we have seen Ajnanam is equal to Karana Sharira is equal to Anandamaya Kosha. Isn't it? We have seen the full explanation when we discuss the Anatma. Okay. So ignorance. It is of the nature of ignorance. Mula Vidya is what was said there, right? It is of the nature of ignorance. What? Anandamaya Kosha. So again, that is not me. Ignorance belongs to me, but I am not ignorance. That again is something we have to understand. So Anandamaya Kosha. Then he says, Svenaiva Jnayate. All these are known as mind. Svenaiva. And he quotes the example, Kataka Kundala Grihadikam. Kataka basically means bangles. We wear bangles. Kataka is bangles. Kundala is earrings. And Grihadikam, Griha Adi means house, etc. Like we are used to saying my bangle, my earring, my house, my car, like that we are used to saying my. Similarly, we are saying my body, my mind, my intellect, my buddhi, and my ignorance. All this we use the same my. So just like all those things are not me, These things are also not me. All the anatmas, the 11 anatmas that we listed, the 3 shariram, which is otherwise we can see it as a panchakosha, and also the avastatrayam, they are all not me. That's what he wants to establish. So they are different from me, and that is why he says Atmana Bhavati. They are not the self, the I. Okay. So now the question still remains, who am I? Isn't it? The author will deal with the question a little later. We'll come to that. So before that, let us just go through this long sentence once again and make sure that we understand everything which is said there. Madiyam shariram, madiya pranaha, madiyam manaha, madiya buddhihi, madiyam ajnanam. All these 5 represent the 5 koshas, the pancha koshas, which we have seen. Okay. All these svenaitvaiva jayate, all these are taken as mine and never as I. So madiyatvena jyatam kataka kundala grihadikam panchakoshadikam. They are like any other worldly possessions, like our body, mind, etc. also are possessions, but not as the possessor. We are the possessor. We must understand. Now we have to know who that possessor is. What is the nature of that possessor is. So that's why he says swasmat bhinnam madiyatvena jyatam. Different, swasmat bhinnam, different from me and known as mine only. Atmana bhavati. That is not the Atma. It is different from Atma. It is not the Atma. So the logical question now is Atma tarhi kaha is what the student is asking. Tarhi means then. Then what is Atma? The teacher is going round and round and round, not coming to the topic of Atma. Okay. And this is the crucial portion now we have come to. In fact, it is the centerpiece of the entire Vedanta. All that we have seen earlier are all preparatory stages in order to bring us to this understanding of what Atma is. Because as I said earlier, Atma is something which we cannot see. It is the innermost essence of everybody. We cannot experience Atma. We cannot see Atma. How do you understand that Atma, what it is? That is the challenge. And that is why unless you are able to apply your mind and buddhi in the proper direction with all preparation which has been advised, you will never ever be able to figure out what is this Atma is all about. So that is the crucial portion he has come. Tarhi means then. So if I am not the body, if I am not the mind, if I am not the intellect, if I am not my physiological system, I am not the waker, I am not the dreamer, I am not the sleeper also. If I am none of them, then who am I? Atma kaha? What is then this wonderful thing called Atma? Is the question. Author says simply, Atma is Satchidananda Swarupa. Everybody has heard Satchidananda word. But when we understand what is Satchidananda, again the author is, it is just like solving a puzzle. So it doesn't unravel everything in one shot. One by one, step by step he goes. He says Satchidananda Swarupa. What will the student understand by Satchidananda Swarupa? First time he has heard probably this name Satchitan Ananda. You might have heard earlier, but in the context of Vedanta, there's something called Satchidananda. Otherwise, only in some songs he might have heard Satchidananda Guru, Chinmayananda, and all some songs are all there. So he is no wiser. who the student is no wiser, like we are also no wiser. Sachidananda Swarupa means what? So the student asks, Guruji, Sat Kim, Chit Kim, Ananda hai Kim? What do you mean by Sat? What do you mean by Chit? And what do you mean by Ananda? So Sachidananda, what do you mean by all these? So now the Guru says, okay, now the student is getting curious. I should now start unraveling, unfolding this knowledge. He gives the definition of Sat as a very beautiful definition. What is Sat? Sat, as I told you earlier, means pure existence. The easiness of everything is Sat. Whenever we say a book is, a table is, a clock is, I am, that am, easiness which we use is what is Sat. That is pure existence. When we say a table is means what? What do we mean? The table exists. Isn't it? Clock is means the clock exists. I am means I exist. So this existence principle is what is Sat. And for that he defines Sat as Kalatraye api tishtati iti Sat. That which exists in all three periods of time is Sat. So this is, we have to understand this very, very carefully. We'll come to that detailed discussion little later. I will explain Chit and Ananda also. Chit Kim, he says, Jnana Swarupaha. It is of the nature of knowledge. And that is what we have seen as pure consciousness. So pure existence is Sat. Pure consciousness is Chit. Jnana Swarupaha. Then Anandakaha, he says Sukha Swarupaha. Sukha Swarupaha means pure happiness. Because what is happiness? If you ask, can you define happiness? Happiness we can define as an emotion which comes up in our mind under certain circumstances. That is the maximum we can define about happiness. From where that emotion is coming, we don't know. What is the source of that emotion? We don't know. We think that that emotion comes from certain external objects. That's our understanding. Because we have a desire to possess something. And when we possess that, we become happy. So our understanding is that particular object for which we had a desire, since that has now come into my possession, I feel happy. So that happiness is coming from that object. This is what we think rather. In fact, I think the introduction to Vedanta class, if I'm not wrong, those of you who are there, Swami Paramathananda gives a very beautiful example. I'm sure that his gurus might have given this example. It's a very nice example. He gives the example of a dog chewing a bone. I don't know whether I have told you this example earlier, but still it doesn't matter. It's worth repeating in this context. When you give a dry bone to a dog, it keeps on chewing. At least Indian dogs, I don't know, foreign dogs do. Because we have seen in all comics, everything and all that, everything. We have seen a dog always chewing a bone. I suspected that Tom and Jerry, cartoon and all that, there will be a dog, it will be always chewing a bone. So that dog is chewing a bone and it goes on chewing. Why? Because the dog finds that dry bone very tasty. Now the question is, what is that is there in the dry bone give the taste to the dog that it goes on chewing? If you understand the process, what is happening is the dry bone is very hard. When the dog bites into that bone, what happens is it actually, hurts its gums. And the gums starts bleeding. And when the bleeding happens, the taste of that blood, the dog gets. And the dog thinks that the blood taste is coming from the bone. And it goes on biting the bone more and more and more to get more taste. As it continues to do that, more and more blood is coming out of its own body, and the dog is thinking that the bone is giving that wonderful taste. Exactly same way it's happening to us whenever we are chewing all the objects, these material objects of this world. We want to possess this. If I buy this house, I will be happy. If I get married to this particular person, I will be happy. Huh? There's all misconceptions like the dog chewing the bone. We think that happiness is there in all these objects, in people and situations. Whereas that happiness actually is within us. We are Ananda Swarupa hai, Sukha Swarupa hai. Then why we experience that happiness, we will explain it later, because if I start saying all that, we'll go into deeper subject. Rather, the process of that happiness being experienced. So, Sukha Swarupa hai, he says. So, these three crucial words, let us first understand. Okay. And let us first actually start with the word Chit. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Three words are there. Let us start with Chit. Chit, as I said, means Chaitanya. Okay, consciousness. Chit stands for Chaitanyam or consciousness. There are other words used in Shastra, Jnanam, Vijnanam. All these words are used for the word Chit. In fact, Sat, Chit, Ananda in Taittiriya Upanishad is described as Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. That is how Taittiriya Upanishad describes. So, Sat is equal to Satyam, Chit is equal to Jnanam, and Ananda is equal to Anantam. So, this is Sat, Chit, Ananda. So, Chit is consciousness, or basically knowledge, pure knowledge, Jnana. So, according to this Tattva Bodha text, this Vedantic text, Atma, the real I, is of the nature of consciousness. And that consciousness is what makes our entire body, mind complex sentient. It's just like the power of a battery which makes all the toy cars go. If you remove the battery, the car will not work. So if you remove consciousness from our body, mind, sense complex, there will be no activity, in fact, in this body, mind, sense complex. So Atma is consciousness, the principle because of which the body is alive. We think the body is alive because of breathing. Breathing also happens because of consciousness only. If that is not the case, a dead body also should be breathing. Isn't it? Air is there always. For us also the same air we breathe, the dead body also is exposed to the same air. Why dead body doesn't breathe? Why we breathe? Because dead body is not conscious. The consciousness has left the dead body. It has become like a fused bulb. Any amount of power will not work. Anyhow, so the sentient means what? It gives us sentience. Sentience means capable of feeling the surrounding, which makes the body different from an inert desk or an inert, laptop or an inert book. These things cannot, they do not have sentience. All living beings have got sentience. Non-living beings, consciousness is there, but it is incapable of reflecting. They do not have the medium for reflecting that consciousness. And that is why they do not have sentience. Whereas all living things have got that instrument or medium for reflecting the consciousness, because of which they are alive and they are able to carry out all their transactions. And the body is also made of chemicals, right? Just like all this, desk, everything, they're also made of chemicals only, with some wood and all that, and so many paint, everything, is all involved in that. So this body is also has got all those chemicals, which is called biochemistry, isn't it? A lot of chemicals are there, acids and all things are all there in the body. But it is different. That's why we call it biochemistry, alive. There is only chemistry. Ours is a biochemistry. So whatever makes this body alive and sentient is what we have to understand as consciousness. So now the next question would be, what is this consciousness which makes this body sentient? Isn't it? Okay, consciousness, you have said. What is this consciousness? Vedanta analyzes this nature of this consciousness thoroughly. And we have to understand the fundamental principles of nature. We have to understand the fundamental principles of the nature of this consciousness. And there are certain principles about this consciousness that we have to understand. First, we have to remember is that this consciousness is not a part of the body. We have listed all the parts in the 11 Panchakoshas and Shariratraya and all that. This consciousness is not any one of them. So it's not a part of the body. That's first thing. So according to Vedanta, unlike this weight, height, complexion, etc., which are all properties of this body, sentiency or consciousness is not the property of the body. It is not even a part of the body. Like the hair, skin and all that, right? They are all parts of the body. Consciousness is not even part of the body. So consciousness is neither a part of the body nor a property of the body. This is the first thing we have to remember. Having understood this, can we say that life or consciousness is generated in the body or in the brain? Just as these enzymes are produced in the body, blood is manufactured, cells are manufactured, all those creations happens in the body continuously. Similarly, is it that this consciousness is manufactured in the body? Vedanta says no. It is not even a product generated by the brain or whatever other part of the body is. The body cannot generate life by itself. it requires something, some entity, some principle for the life to get generated in a body. So first lesson we have to learn from this is consciousness is neither a part of a body, nor a product of the body, nor a property of the body. This is the first thing we have to know about consciousness. And remember, consciousness, we are talking in the context of understanding what the Atma is. Because one of the aspects of the Atma is Chit, which is consciousness. From this, what we can say, Atma is neither a part of the body, a product of the body, or a property of the body. And when I say body, I am referring to body, mind, sense complex, everything, all the Panchakoshas. This is the first lesson. The second lesson is that, on the other hand, this consciousness is an invisible, independent entity which pervades this body and makes this body alive. This consciousness converts the chemistry into biochemistry. In one way, you can say. Consciousness, of course, this is only a figure of speech, rather. Consciousness doesn't do anything. In its mere presence, everything happens. But as a figure of speech, we can say it converts the chemistry into biochemistry. Even though it's not exact example, but the nearest example we can think of is the electricity, which makes this fan and light and all active. Can we see the electricity? We cannot see the electricity, correct? Can we, say that electricity is a property of all these gadgets, fan and light and all? We can say, no, electricity is not a property. Electricity is not a product. These fans and all, they don't generate electricity themselves. Electricity is an independent entity. It is an independent entity and it is also invisible. We can't see it. We can only experience electricity when the fan is running or the light bulb is glowing. If there is something wrong with the fan or the light bulb, we will not know whether there is electricity or not, isn't it? Even if electricity is there, we will not know it. It's an independent, invisible entity. Okay. So it is not a property of a fan. It is not part of a fan. It is not even a product of the fan. It is a separate principle which is independent, exists independent of the fan. Even before this fan was manufactured, electricity was there. Even after this fan becomes out of order, electricity will continue to be there. And it is that invisible, independent electricity which is what is making this fan active. This is how we can roughly understand. So, all our bodies are like these fans. Just as this invisible electricity makes the fan rotate and work and give us air, just as the invisible electricity makes the bulb glow brilliantly, similarly, this inert bundle of matter, which is our body, mind, sense complex, is alive and kicking because of the invisible principle called consciousness. So the second lesson is consciousness is an invisible, independent entity which pervades the body and makes it alive and makes it able to do all transactions that the body wants to undertake or undertakes. Now the lesson number 3. This invisible independent consciousness is not limited or circumscribed by or confined within the boundaries of the body. This is the third thing we have to understand, important thing about this consciousness. It is inside the body and outside the body also. It extends beyond the body. It's just like electricity. It is not confined only to one gadget or one fan or light. It is there. In fact, electricity is there in the atmosphere, in the air. In the cosmos, there is electricity. What we do is we have tapped that electricity through different means, like this hydropower or wind power and all. And then we are, after trapping that electricity, we are making use of it. But otherwise, electricity is all pervading. It is all there in the entire cosmos. So that is how we have to understand this consciousness also. It is there, like electricity, it is there everywhere. It is there in the body also, our body also. So this consciousness is beyond boundaries, limitless. That is what is the Taittiriya Upanishad, Anantam, it says, limitlessness. And which is what is called Ananda. Ananda, the Sukha Swarupa which we talked about, and limitlessness have got a very close connection. What is that connection? We will see when we come to Sukha Swarupa explanation. Very close connection is there between Ananda and limitlessness. So according to Vedanta, this consciousness is boundless, timeless, dimensionless. Just like electricity. I mean, if we remember electricity, we can broadly understand what this consciousness is. But we must remember, even electricity is there because of consciousness. That is the beauty. Electricity is not something independent of consciousness. Electricity is able to produce that power, do whatever electricity is expected to do, or it does because of consciousness. So if you say electricity is working, it is working because of consciousness. So that way we must not confuse that electricity is one entity, consciousness is another entity. No, there is only consciousness. Electricity example, as I said, that's why I said it's a rough example, it's a crude example, but very near example. Shastra gives example of Akasha and all that. We will see those examples when we go to, later, chapters. From a subtleness point of view. Anyhow, so this is what is it is boundless, limitless. Consciousness has no height, no width, no length, no weight. It is beyond all these things. All these height, weight, name, and all this belong to the body. Just as in the case of a fan, the length does not belong to the electricity, it belongs to the blade of the fan. So the third lesson is consciousness has no boundaries. It is all pervading. It is limitless. So it is not limited by space at all. Consciousness is not limited by space. Okay, wait a second. Then the fourth lesson. Fourth lesson is this invisible, independent consciousness will continue to survive even after the body medium dies or perishes or is destroyed. So as I said, consciousness is permanently there. These bodies come and go. Today I am having this body, which is sentient. One fine day, this body will go. Then I will take another body. That body also will be made sentient by consciousness. If that happens to be a living body, it will have to be living body, one of the living. So this consciousness is always there. It is always existing there. Just, I mean, we can relate it to the example of this light and fan. Even if the light bulb becomes fuse, electricity will still be there. It will be existing there, right? So even after the body dies, consciousness will continue to exist. It is therefore a permanent principle. It is an eternal principle. So the fourth lesson is this consciousness is not limited by time. That is the fourth lesson. So it is not limited by space was the third lesson. It is not limited by time is the fourth lesson. And this is beautifully explained by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranah na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Beautifully he puts. He says this consciousness, which is called it here as the soul, we can call it, right? The Atma is never born. Na jayate, na mriyate, it never dies. Na ayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyah. It does not become an Atma after being born, or it is unborn and eternal. It's an everlasting principle. Then ajo nitya means there is always everlasting principle. Shashvata ayam purana been there for eternal, I mean beginningless times rather. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Even when the body is slain, when the body is destroyed, the body is killed, this consciousness, this Atma is not destroyed, is not killed. This is what Bhagavan says. So this is the fourth lesson. The consciousness is beyond time. Then the fifth and final lesson is after death, the surviving consciousness cannot be contacted by us or recognized by us. Not because it is not present, but because the medium of the body no longer exists. That medium, it's like as I told you, fused bulb. That body, that medium which was there, which was able to reflect this consciousness in our body, that has gone. So that consciousness is not able to reflect after the death of the body. So the surviving consciousness after the death of the body is unrecognizable. We can recognize the presence of consciousness only when the body is alive and sentient. When the body is dead, we cannot recognize the consciousness. So this is the fifth lesson we have to keep in our mind. But in the case of electricity, somebody may say, no, but we can recognize if we put our fingers into the socket, we will know there is electricity. Isn't it? There also, we have to switch on the socket, then only we will know. If the switch is off, we will not know. So there is a medium through which the electricity can be recognized. Otherwise, if electricity can be recognized without a medium, we all should be now having shocks after shocks. Isn't it? Where electricity there everywhere. Why we have to bring that electricity to a wire, to a socket, to connect it to fan and all? Because those are the medium or media through which electricity can be recognized. Okay. So, like electricity can be recognized only when it flows through a particular medium, like a gadget and all, and not otherwise. This consciousness also can be recognized only through the sentiency of this body, and not our body. All body, all living, including plants, animals, everything. All we can recognize the consciousness, the growth which happens. Growth happens because of sentience. All is driven by this consciousness. So, in the absence of the body, this consciousness is unrecognizable, but not non-existent. That we must understand. It always exists. So, this Atma survives even after death. That is the conclusion we have to understand. Whenever we say Atma, 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 I, self, 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 we must understand that this self never dies. What dies is only the body. This self never dies. It always exists. It will leave this body, go and take another body. There is a process, how it happens and all. We will not go into those details now. Okay. So, that's why we call this consciousness Chit Swarupa, Chaitanya Swarupa. So, by naming this consciousness as Atma, the author wants to claim this consciousness as I, the self. So, what we have all along been understanding that I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect, author says, now remove that understanding and replace it with this understanding that I am the consciousness. I, the self, is Atma. I am the consciousness. And that is how we have to train our mind. We have to train ourselves to claim this consciousness as I, and I. I am. As long, all along, we have actually claimed this body wrongly as I, isn't it? We have wrongly claimed or wrongly learned to claim this prana, the mind, intellect as all I. All because we have been the victims of wrong conditioning from birth after birth. Nobody told us about all these things. We were never exposed to these scriptures, Upanishads and all that. If we had been exposed in the previous birth and we had got moksha, we would not have been here to attend these classes. Isn't it? So we were not told all these things, obviously. Or some of us got some idea, but we didn't reach the ultimate end, the moksha part. So what the author wants to say is, now from now onwards, at least understand that you are not the body, mind, sense complex. You are consciousness. You are everlasting. All these things we described, the 5 lessons that we learned, apply to yourself. You are that. You are beyond time. You are beyond space. You are not a product or a property or of the body or part of the body. You are different from all that. That is what is you. Understand, my dear. And this understanding is what is called self-knowledge, one aspect of self-knowledge. To know what your correct true self is. This is what your true self is, consciousness. You are of the nature of consciousness. So what we should learn is, we should learn to claim the inner, immortal, invisible essence, which is the consciousness, as I. This is what we have to start learning. Rather, more we will see in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
There are any questions we can discuss?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. So shall we, any questions or shall we close the session?
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Yes, Sulekha ji, any question? Hands up means you can Tata bye bye. I'll ask you a question. I can't make out.
I'm sorry for all my questions, first of all.
No,
and
no,
thank
no,
you
no.
very
You're
much.
most welcome. Your questions actually help some other students also. You know.
I mean, this was an excellent session, and thank you very much for the clear understanding. My question is this idea of the chips that you spoke of. Just want to clarify that it's an impersonal principle. It's not an individualized aspect. It's impersonal.
Impersonal, yes. Impersonal, it is, there is only one chit. Consciousness is one entity in this entire cosmos, pervading the whole cosmos. When we come later, to the part of Aikyam, the third part of this, we will understand how this consciousness actually gets reflected in all these mediums, in what form they get reflected. We are only reflections of this consciousness. In fact, there are some examples given, like for example, broken pieces of a mirror, if they are lying on the ground, in each piece we can see the sun.
Right.
It will appear as if there are so many suns, as many pieces as suns are there. But actually there is only one sun, which is getting reflected in each of those pieces. We need to understand that. That is where, Advaita Vedanta makes a total difference in our understanding as compared to the other philosophies. They all think that they take those pieces as real, the reflections as real, and there are so many Atmas. Your Atma is different than from my Atma. Advaita Vedanta says, no, there is only one Atma, there is only one consciousness. And this is the example of the sun which gives, which the Vedanta gives, the scriptures give. So all these things are all there. So you're right, it's totally impersonal. It is not individual at all. But individuals reflect that consciousness and then they become sentient, they are alive and they are able to do their transactions.
So in that point, then I guess the final understanding, maybe very, very far understanding or deep understanding, is understanding that the Atma that we are trying to understand as ourself, our true self, is really the only one Paramatma that is there in existence. And when that happens, there's no merging of or individuality, that we are just the one. Correct?
So when we use the terms like Jivatma, Paramatma and all, they are all terms we are using in the intermediate stage. In the final this thing, there is no Jivatma. There is only Paramatma and we are all Paramatmas only. And that is why Aham Brahmasmi makes sense. When the Mahavakya says Tattvamasi, that Paramatma you are, it makes sense. When we understand that there is only one non-dual entity which is Paramatma.
It's very beautiful. Thank you.
It's very beautiful, yeah.
Very beautiful.
We have to understand it stage by stage by stage by stage, because we must not carry the doubts till the last stage and then totally get confused. So that is why these things like Tattva Bodha and all, they unfold this knowledge in a very nice way, very step by step. It's little deliberate and time consuming, but that is necessary because What we are trying to negate or forget is what we have been taking ourselves to be all these past lives, so many crores of births that we have had. This our current understanding is that at least we are lucky we got an opportunity in this birth to get at least this exposed to this knowledge. And when you understand that everything, you are Paramatma, everything is Paramatma, that is what Sarvatma Bhava, what Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita. Then you will not have any raga, any dvesha for anything, anybody. You will treat everything as the same as your own self. So that is the continuation of this.
And just a continuation of your previous explanations when you talked about general relationships and special relationships. This is very much along that same path of understanding.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are all in the same path. We are going in that. So all these general relationships, special relationships are all, sort of tools you can say in order to, manage our day-to-day affairs rather.
Right.
And then keep moving on the spiritual path. That's all.
Right.
Otherwise, the goal is that our ultimate goal is to completely understand who am I. Once we understand who am I, and we abide in that understanding, because mere understanding is not enough. We need to abide in that understanding. We need to lead our life on the principles or on the foundation on which that understanding is there. Then we become Jnanis and Mahatmas. That is how Jnanis and Mahatmas are made. So again, it is not something that it is unachievable by us. We have seen people like Ramana Maharishi, Swami Chinmayananda, so many people we have seen, Swami Vivekananda, they got this understanding and they abided in that understanding. They became Mahatmas. So it is not difficult for us to be that, to become that. But we have taken certain steps in this life. In fact, we got derailed because we have not, if we had started this exercise right from our childhood, maybe by this time we would have gained it. But it is never too late. We got married, we got entangled into all the samsara problem and everything. Fine. But still, it is not that, because that is also a part of our duty rather. As a human being, there are certain expectations of others and all. They have gone through all that. Now we have reached a stage where we can further take it, move to the next stage. That is what it is.
Wonderful. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Hari Om. Thank you very much,
Hari.
all of you. We'll see you on next Saturday. Hari Om. Thanks.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.